Well, hello. First, I would like to apologize for the audio and video quality. I'm using a Sprout Generation 2. I'm not a content creator TM. Uh, I use this for uh, video conference calls and that sort of thing. And I like the downward firing camera in this nice stage, for if I need to lay out documents or there's a work piece, I can do that on stage. And excuse me, the audio is um, just a uh, teleconferencing headset. It's not a nice Electro Voice with the variable D technology or anything, though. I don't know if one of those would actually improve my dulcet tones. I actually have one. Because I do sound a little bit like Bullwinkle J. Moose. In fact, when I used to do, I'd have to train people on various forms of stats analysis, statistical analysis. Uh, we'd use a lot of Monte Carlo simulation and whatnot. Somebody about day two would go, Bullwinkle, you sound like Bullwinkle Moose, which of course would undermine my authority a little, which was just kind of funny. Made for the next couple of days a little more difficult. Not difficult. Everybody was having a good time, but it was just kind of a funny thing. Okay, Bullwinkle. So anyway, the reason I'm here on this video is that I was on a channel yesterday, I believe, that was an interesting channel about men's style over 40, the over 40 crew. We have our things that have changed. I'm in my late 50s. Uh, but it's an interesting channel addressing things for that set. And it came to the various sorts of bags one would carry. And the channel host brought up some very good points about really and I agree that with personal style, and it's a personal style. We're looking at things like context and intentionality. Looking and there was one gentleman, I believe, from London, who found for his personal context that his everyday carry bag, I believe he used wax canvas, wax cotton, or leather. I think he might have used both at one time or another, and that was suitably waterproof for the London rains. I brought up an interesting point that for my personal context, that first of all, excuse me, that waterproof is kind of a continuum. It's that's why we have the IP ratings. The second number in an IP rating is about the ingress protection. Is what that is the water ingress. The other number is particulates, dust, and what have you. But it's kind of a continuum. That I would consider, for instance, in my context, I would consider, a leather bag, with a flap closure or that kind of thing, more of a weatherproof system than a waterproof system, because I am in the Pacific Northwest, so I do get quite a bit of rain here, and the Welsh corgis love it. They think it's Wales. Excuse me. And I am in a marine environment. I live on an island, and I often work in marine environments. There is a bridge, but sometimes I get around by jet ski. It's faster from island to island at times. Other times I get around by sidecar rig. It's my preferred road transport method. Other times I have to take a different vehicle. It's the house is a little bit like the old Jerry Anderson Thunderbirds. What action vehicle you choose has to do with what the mission is, be it a minivan or the truck, or the boat. And it also matters what my wife has decided to take at that moment. So my context is a little bit different. In relating in the conversation, it mentioned that I tend to use dry bags. A dry backpack is my everyday carry. And so there's some questions about that. Hence this video. That's quite the introduction. For my everyday carry, tend to use, which is, I guess, tend to use is kind of redundant, being it's the everyday carry, is a dry backpack. My apologies, it doesn't quite fit into the frame. This is a dry case brand dry bag. There are other brands. I don't mean to be brand specific. This isn't an advertisement or anything of that nature. I do get it at I do get these at DEMA, dive expo every few years. But honestly, this it seems like for me they last about 8 years, even in some very rough use. Uh, so I've been all over the world with this kind of stuff. But this is a 35-liter bag. It comes in at about a little less than 3 pounds. A full grain leather backpack of similar design might come in around a 4.5, maybe 5 pounds, depending on the hardware and the different appointments. Uh, Now it measures out at about roughly 30 inches by 16 inches. Now that's fully open. Closed. When I close it, I'm probably getting something more like that at 20 inches or so. But again, with a dry bag, and we'll explore that shortly, you can kind of change the dimensions. Um, it is a backpack. Um, now the weight is nice because I do have, as somebody my age will have, I have sciatica and stenosis and disc degeneration and all the wonderful things, and some other things. One foot slightly longer than the other, so I do have to wear orthotics, but orthotics which can really pull the kinetic chain out of alignment, your spinal chain. Um, so it's got some nice features. That's why I tend to use a backpack. Both my Eastern and Western um, medical practitioners. My Eastern practitioner also has a Western medical background, um, which is kind of funny because he'll talk about the various pressure point, but then it'll also be like, it's intracranial nerve this. Uh, but everybody has disrecommended that I use asymmetric loading, such as briefcases or messenger bags, a single shoulder messenger bag. Um, I used to, times have changed. I think the host brought up that it's like what used to work doesn't work now. And as we get older, and, I used to use a lot of the chrome backpacks. I still got a Berliner, um, which is nice. That one can actually be set up double. But I do use symmetrical loading to keep my spine aligned correctly, and it is nice because this one does have a full hip belt. Now to be quite, get that off your back and get it on your belt, just like a larger trekking pack. And quite honestly, if I clip it together or fold it, no one even notices if it's there. If you really need a little extra, you can clip this down. You can clip down if you need to clip down that. Of course, you can. But a little spot of hook and loop on one of the. Let's see if I can do this. A little spot of hook and loop on one of the wings, and here and here. And you just fold it in, and really, no one's the wiser if that's a problem for you. It tends not to be a problem for me. I think. I think it's understood this day and age. So I think it's sort of a new tradition. I think backpacks used to be um, just for people felt that it was youthful. But funny thing is, it works out for the advancing age, maybe even more so. And it's become, I think, a practical option, um, especially having hands free if you have to do some things. For me, it's very nice if I have to get on or off boats. I've got my hands. I got two hands. You want that two-hand connection anytime you can have it. It's not going to go anywhere. Still easy to get out of if I need to at any point, but I train for that at all times. Um, yeah, so I think that the backpack is practical option, and like everybody else, if you're on a say public transit, and on your back is bumping into people, or if you're going into an office, sort of like when you remove your hat as you go indoors, you can always drop it to the uh, very, very, very sturdy haul handle here, uh, and carry it that way. So I really find it to be a practical option. Inside, quite honestly, and I don't know if I can properly show this um, inside. It is uh, really just one large compartment. So it's that kind of backpack. It does have a zippered compartment that's about 1 foot 30 centimeters from here, and so that's and 8 inches or 20-ish centimeters this way, uh, right in there. So I don't. That might be you might be able to stretch to it 8.5 and 11 to get that in if you're use U.S. paper sizing, but that's not really its thing. And it does have a zipper closure, not a waterproof, and it does have this nice. It does have a hook and loop tab right there, which I don't know if you can see. And again, my apologies. I am not configured for this. Talk about context. So right there, there's a hook and loop tab, so you can hang things on that. Which is one of the things. I have a love-hate relationship with bags with, excuse me, multiple little pockets, for your pens and these sorts of things. Um, I find I love the idea. I love the idea, but again, back to personal context, it always seems like I get pocketitis. There's too many of them. I think, ooh, I'm going to store things exactly the way I want. Um, but the pockets might not be set up for that for me, like what I personally need, or there's so many of them, they kind of becomes this little lost center. So often I prefer to do that in external pocket systems that I can either uh, put on that tab or like my journal, my notebook. I just put everything there, and there's even a little a little document pocket there, that kind of thing. Uh, so I think there's other options that one can use, but again, that's a personal thing, and um, I do think. Oh, excuse me. Um, I do think that the pockets are kind of neat, but they run into some problems. If they don't fit your context, and sometimes I see some technology changes. If oh, I've had bags in the past that have had pockets for 3.5-inch floppies, and floppy disks, and that technology is rolled, or the technology. I'm going to say electronics because I try to remind people that controlled fire and pottery are also technologies. Bags that have maybe charge ports built in, USB charge ports. Well, we've seen the shift from USB A and B to USB C. Now USB C, the 3.0 standard or so, has QC quick charge and PD power distribution, which are significantly higher current. So those bags with the ports are a little bit obsolete. And I actually have some, like I've got a carry-on bag, that airplane bag that I honestly tend not to use. It's a nice little one, but this tends to travel with me a lot. It is kind of my every day. It's just kind of glued to me carry. Um, but it's big enough for 35 liters. It's big enough for even a large laptop. Again, intentionality and purpose is I tend to use Panasonic ToughLook products. This one is actually, this is the 33. It's actually a pad and with a laptop dock. Make sure it locks in. I'm not going to do it right now, but make sure that locks in because of the carry handle. But I also use CF33s. I haven't made the jump. One thing that I don't like about those is I don't dislike it, but obsolete technology a little bit. They use the 4:3 aspect ratio or thereabouts. And sometimes the interface designers on software kind of assume there's going to be a default 16:9 and things like that. Um, for air travel, a lot of times I'll use one of the GPD WinMax 2s because you can tray tables, and I'll use XR or AR glasses for the monitor. So does my wife. She does biomedical patents, so she's got some sensitive information. So when she throws the glasses on and uses that as her monitor, nobody gets to see the sensitive information. It's a lot better, and I feel those privacy filters. But I digress. Um, so this is my everyday carry. The thing about the dry bag is it's really about the really about the material construction. This is sort of a rubberized canvas fabric. It's now I've had no durability problems with these. I mean, I have had to retire one, but that was after many countries and many environments and many years. So this, I'm very happy with this brand. But instead of a zipper, now they do make dry zippers. You'll see them on dry suits, both surface and diving dry suits. But they're both hardy and delicate. They don't deal with mistreatment very well, and they require maintenance, and they're um, stiff and a little difficult to zip, well, a little difficult to unzip too, which is important when it's your protective equipment. But this is just a simple roll top flap, almost like you do, and most of them have instructions right there or somewhere on there. You just roll. The gold standard is 1, 2, 3 rolls, and then just clip it, and you're good to go. Now notice that I clipped it this way. I just do that, so you could do it the other way, but it gets in the way of your head, and it just makes it always the same way. Now on the other side of that, there is an air valve because you're closing it like a bag of chips or what have you. Um, you know, you can trap a bigger volume of air and make it hard to because you are doing an airtight seal and make it hard to close. So this allows you to squish the air out or leave it in if you want. So in case in case you're worried about it getting into the water, it'll float. You can keep air in there, and it's just a simple open or closed. So you can often open it when you do. If you notice, it was open when I did the closure and then close it off. But though, I have done it with it closed, not a big deal. Um, and it's not rated for a PFD, but if I needed to toss something to somebody in an emergency, it certainly could be help if there's nothing else available. Um, it's got some appointments on it, a mesh side pocket, and then whatever you want to put here. I put on a article finder tag, just so I can save myself. I've saved myself. This is the Tile product as opposed to the Apple product. Uh, love hate, it's just a product. I'm not going to do a comparative analysis on that. I just don't have that kind of information. But I will say that the Tile system in general, just regardless of the brand, has saved me weeks of time looking for stuff, keys and whatnot. Um, and it's just a nice sanity check. Sometimes it's like, did I bring it? Yes, I did. Okay. Uh, I do keep some line on me. Not everybody would necessarily do that. And some carabiners, both lockers. And now these aren't rated for climbing, but they're just a little, as they say right there, just a little camming unit so you can tighten it up without having to do a bunch of knots. Honestly, I've found more use for this, not with action adventure, but when someone needs to tie down a tailgate or whatever the case may be, and it can be in any kind of setting. And it is kind of a neat thing, I guess, as I get older. Uh, I Sometimes the younger people, I think look to me for wisdom of the ages in terms of I'm just prepared for those life's little emergencies. Like when I wear a suit to a wedding, I have I keep pinned into my uh, on the inside of my jacket, safety pins, some tape. I always carry usually a very small sewing kit, um, usually like a gaffer's tape, which comes in handy for all kinds of bridal things. Uh, and usually a small needle and thread, a stain stick, and it doesn't take up much room. You think it would, it does not. Um, and things of that nature. Just to help out with the wedding and just have that. And that's saved, not saved weddings, but it's come in very, very handy at weddings and other sorts of formal functions like that, uh, that kind of thing. So I just try to be prepared in terms of that. And yeah, it helps keep other people comfortable. I find as in my age, as I become um, more of a support crew and been there, done that situation, that's part of the role. On the um, shoulder strap side, and this is just out of personal habit, again, context, I do carry a cutting tool. Uh, and this one happens to be multi-tool, so that's come in very handy in all kinds of things. Again, often it's opening a bag or a box or all kinds of things, or just a little tweaking, a little adjustment, just standard multi-tool stuff, but it's right there and it's on my right shoulder, so I can get to it quickly. On my left shoulder, I carry, and this is actually a Chrome product, just a little notebook bag, notebook holster, and again, it's on my left pocket, so I can grab the pen and start writing. Seems to work. The cross draw seems to work better. This is Write in the Rain, all weather notebook, so it's kind of semi-plasticized paper. Underwater, I use a full plastic paper and pencils usually. Uh, and I carry a Fisher Space Pen, a small one, that writes much better on this stuff, especially when I find when notebooks like this are wet. Regular pens tend not to write that well on them. Uh, so I've got that in there. Now this does have a pen loop for a pen, but one problem I find is that it is outside the flap, so I find it insecure. I don't know if that reads at all. Let's see if I can get over here. It's got a pen loop, but I find it um, is not secure, and really have lost pens that way before. Uh, which I don't particularly enjoy. Uh, I carry an extra set of collapsible glasses for me or anyone else. These are very, very cheap, so you can always just give them away. 1.75 seems to be a sweet spot. Somebody who doesn't need that much magnification can still deal with it. If somebody uses 1.25 or 1.5, carry a little emergency cash and a couple of denominations for tips or what have you. Um, and that's the everyday carry portion of that. Uh, and I guess I can stop here as I've wasted your time for 20 minutes. But I did want to do just kind of a tour of what my everyday carry looks like. Um, and it does allow me to go many places without an equipment change. I can jump on a jet ski and go from island to island, which would take me probably 90 minutes by car around. Takes me about 17 minutes by jet ski. Um, it's and just living in the Pacific Northwest, it protects the equipment. And that's one thing I think that came up in the video is, what we really need. And one point I was looking at was if you don't prioritize what the bag, okay, no, in terms of intentionality, the bag is for carrying things. If the bag cannot carry things in whatever your context is, um, properly, that's safely. In both in terms of personal safety and equipment safety. If it can't carry it safely and securely, um, then it's of no use because you've taken a payload, a paying load, a payload, and you've turned it in to a repair cost, and it's worse if there's data. If you've got data loss, if you're coming in from somewhere and you've got you haven't been in a position to analyze or back up the data or this kind of thing, or their documents, signed hard documents, that kind of thing, with a with a ink signature on it and that kind of thing, then it's worse than just the material loss, than just the cost of replacing the paper or the computer or whatever it is. So it's important, that I think that the bag does its job first, and that's about what's the context, what kind of thing I need to do, and that's intention. That's intention. I mean, I have an intention to carry this equipment in whatever the context is and get the job done. So that's really my thing. I do like the dry case brand. I do think they're good. There are other brands that are great. My wife has both light and heavier duty Filson bags. She tends to carry almost more of a tote bag, but does fine in professional. She's a biomedical patent attorney, and it does fine in those sorts of situations. Yeah. So thank you so much for listening. I hope this was enlightening, and my apologies for the rambles. I did want to give full detail. I don't have any script, and I have probably gone past what was even the original video. Thank you very much for listening.